Hello and welcome to the Change Gang podcast with me, your host, Laura Ordile. I'm here to help you hold on to your sanity and your soul as you move through big change in your life. I'm here to guide you, inform you, and hopefully help you to triumph over trauma and the long list of symptoms that come along with it. This podcast series is to bring knowledge, share stories, and open up conversation around hope for those of you that suffer with the difficulties that present themselves in your life, from diagnosed or undiagnosed trauma. Labeled or not, I know you need help, and so do those that have graciously taken the time to have these conversations with me. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Week Change Gang. I have an amazing gentleman with me. I have Tony Gordon with me, and he is going to share all about some really interesting information. I'm happy to have him here. He's a mindset coach, a motivational speaker, podcaster as well, and I love that, and some wonderful areas, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that for a minute too. Thanks for being here, Tony.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, Laura. I appreciate it.
So we're on talking about triumphing over trauma in this particular version of the conversations. I want to dig into that just a little bit and chat about why you decided to work with people with autism. What led you to that? Did you have your own kind of trauma, or was it just really a need to work with people that were suffering?
It's a really good question. And to be honest, up until about 2 years ago, one, I had a lot of difficulty answering. I'm of a certain age that was brought up with males not to speak about emotions, don't talk about feelings, that you always have to be the one who's there for everybody else. So quite briefly, in 2011, I collapsed with a lot of pain, didn't know what was going on. Because it was a shooting pain, it was assumed it was possibly a heart problem, but it wasn't. I then found out it was a kidney infection, which I'd never had. My age, it seemed quite strange. I never had a kidney infection. But after all that time, we realised they were coming quite often. They were coming every 4 or 5 weeks, and they were difficult to give me any medication that would stop it. Anyway, after a few months, one of my kidneys calcified, which meant it turned into stone because of the amount of infections that was sitting there. So I only had one kidney left, and then that started having problems. So they had to do a reimplantation, and it was a bit between the kidney and bladder called the ureter. They had to replace that because it was all blocked with all these infections, but they couldn't find what was causing it. It was a bit like the chicken and the egg. I've got an infection which is normally caused by something, but mine seemed the opposite. The infection, the impact was caused by an infection, but they couldn't find what was causing the infection. And it was something similar to, I guess you had Ainsley Alexander. I was listening to one of his episodes, and it was similar. They were telling me it was all in my mind. They said it must be in your head, it must be psychosomatic. I went, but how am I getting physical symptoms? If it's psychosomatic, why am I bleeding? Why are all these things happening to me? Anyway, I went on for 9 years, and operation after operation every year. And in 2017, I went shopping one day with my wife. I remember in the car park, we put the bags into the car, sat down in the car, and I broke down. And I'm the big tough man that everybody comes to. And I literally was sobbing, not crying, but I'd say sobbing like a little child. I didn't know what was happening to me. I was shaking. I was sobbing. Came home, couldn't really speak about it. I didn't know what was happening. I tried to hide it, even though I knew my wife was there and seen it. This was on a Saturday. I went back to work on the Monday morning, and when I walked into work, a manager was there. She's great. Walked up and said, "Tori, you don't look right. Your eyes are black. You shouldn't be here." And I said, "I've not had a lot of sleep." Didn't want to explain why. She went, "I don't mean the outside. I mean your eyes are literally black. You don't look right." She took me into a room and put me straight on the counselor. Anyway, we carried on, done some counsel work. Personal centre didn't work. They were great. Told me I was better to analyse myself than they were. So they put me on the CBT. That didn't work either. Then went to clinical psychology. My consultant was looking after me at this time. And the clinical psychologist was fantastic. I go Dr. Chris Harding. He was someone who was totally different from me. He was one of those ones that sort of look at more outside the best way of saying from doctors. What is there that they could do, but what else could they do? And there was a thing he had called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. It's a form of CBT, but it's more of a modern form of CBT. But they don't really promote that very much because it's similar to a lot of things that people call woo-woo, and so they don't really advise that. But he taught me so many things that what I was feeling wasn't stuck in my mind, but my mind was making it worse. I had a lot of damage because the operations they were doing were doing. I realised that was causing more of a problem than the illness itself, because every time they operated, they had to cut parts away way to get to where the damage area was. Now they told me I was inoperable. But the day they told me that, I also got told I had cancer. So I realised that's why I had this sort of meltdown. It was the combination of the two of them. But only when he made me look back on the day, I realised why it happened. I never took any notice that. I just got on with it. But it had a lot more impact than I thought. But what it got me, it was really looking for what would help me. His accent did help a bit. It helps me to reduce the pain, but it doesn't go away. I know I'll have it for the rest of my life. I know I'll get the damage there. The extra that going every 3 months, I have to be checked. And it's one of those things where I realised that the journey I'd been on for all those years, trying to find something to help with pain, because it literally was unbearable. There was nights when I didn't want to go to bed. And people can understand this, but it wasn't, I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to get up in the morning, because I knew if I put my foot on the floor, the pain would just get 10 times worse every day. So I need to find some way of doing it. So I decided to go on a journey. I went to reflexology, to Reiki, to sound healing, crystal healing, angel healing, hypnosis, NLP, CBT. I went through so many things, EFT, and I found that the hypnosis thing, when I went for a weekend one, it was amazing what suddenly happened. I could reduce that pain from being an 8 every single day down to a 2. And I was on over 25 pills a day, mostly morphine. And yet I could reduce all of that down now to 3 by doing that. These are preventive ones that I take just to help stop the infections coming back. But I got off all the morphine, and the doctors couldn't believe that. They said, no, you need this to manage the pain. So that's when I went and trained. I then trained to be a professional hypnotherapist, a master practitioner in NLP, a master practitioner for EFT, mindfulness and meditation, all the things that really worked for me, so I could put a combination together to help other people.
Wow, what a story. Oh my goodness, that's intense. And I can't even imagine, but it's so hard. And so many people go through so many things just like you went through, where they go through the pain and the difficulty and the search for the relief of that. And it's hard to tell people sometimes, no, really, this, when you can do hypnosis and when you can do it, can relieve so many of those things. It goes in, but people don't make the connection between going in and doing something in your mind with your subconscious to the relationship to your body. How do you explain that to people?
There's one simple thing I tell people. Everybody knows what gut instinct. They all understand, they get that. They get a gut instinct, which is a feeling in the stomach when either they're nervous or they think something's not right or something's going well. And that's supposed to be a thing called the vagus nerve. And it sends messages from the stomach to your mind. And that's a connection between the mind and body. And what I say to people is, think of it this way. Whenever you're physically ill, when you've got a cold, a flu, whatever it is, a broken leg, how do you feel mentally? You feel tired, you feel down, you feel bored, you feel sad. On the other hand, if you feel sad mentally, what does your body feel like? It feels drained, it feels I have no energy, I just want to sleep. That shows you the mind and body are connected. You can't have one without the other. There's actually 3 parts. You've got your physical well-being, your mental well-being, which is your emotional well-being, is the third part. When both of those are connected, you emotionally feel great, you feel better. People can see it straight away in your face. If either of them is a thing, people see your emotional side is not right. That's why people ask you don't look right, are you okay? It's not because they can see you physically wrong, and it's not because they're mentally wrong, but they can see you emotionally. Either you're drained or you're just not your usual self. So it's like a 3-pronged thing I get them to look at, is to understand that you can't have one without the other. You need them all to be in sync.
Yes, that's true. That's a great way to explain it. Oftentimes people too, they don't make the connections. You and I both, we trained in a particular program for PTSD, CPTSD trauma. And the thing that I found in going through that particular work was that people don't relate always. There are some people, yes, absolutely. They'll say, I have PTSD, I have CPTSD, or I have this trauma in my life and I'm experiencing things and I know that it's related to that. But then there's this whole other giant version of the world that's out there, these people who don't understand that all of these things these symptoms, they have the symptoms, they have the pain, or they have a chronic issue that's going on, or they have anxiety, anger, something that shows up, but we wouldn't go and say, I have trauma or I have PTSD. But in the work that we're doing, I have found that it's absolutely related, even if it's something that we don't understand as trauma today. And I know that you've worked with someone now and you work with parents and children in doing some things, so I'm curious a little bit on your viewpoint here, but it goes back to something in the childhood, in the very early years, that we might not even remember, or that was never, that maybe we kind of have an inkling that things went on, but it was just life. It was just how we grew up. It was just something. So do you see that you're able to make the connection and help others really make the connection to that now?
Yeah, I think the program you're talking about, we both learned from. I've been on a PTSD program before, which was like hypnotherapy with CBT to use it. But the one we both did together, what I loved about that is, apart from using the acronym PTSD for us to understand doing it, the person that ran it said it never used that when she talked about it. And that's what I learned from it. Why I find I get such a profound impact with a lot of clients. I don't call it PTSD because they've got this set image in their mind what PTSD is. Oh no, that's only soldiers, or that's somebody who's been in a serious war thing, or they've been in a car crash. Trauma is different for every single person. And trauma doesn't have to be one related issue. It can be issues that's compounded with other issues that talk of each other and built up. An example I had recently, a gentleman who's 64, who for the last 3 years has been on serious antidepressant medication. He was just down, depressed. He said nothing traumatic's happened in his life, anything. So we started just having a talk. I combined what we learned in PTSD, but also with conversational hypnosis and sometimes EFT just to ground clients to start with. And when we did that and we got him talking, things that opened up in him just through conversation, I realised, that he didn't know he'd been dealing with trauma for about 50 years, but didn't realise it himself since he was younger. So rather than using the language, what I did just say was, right, there's things that happen throughout life that we don't always realise, we don't always understand, but what we do is suppress them. And we suppress them so far that they keep going down, but one day, I call it the kettle effect. If you put your hand over a spout of a kettle, what's the lid pop off? The steam's nowhere else to go. So it has to do something. That's like human beings. We build up and build up. All these things we push down, but one day they will all come back. The problem for a lot of people is they look at what is the latest thing and think that's what caused it, but it's not. That pressure is built from somewhere and you have to find that. And what's brought into the program that we learn, that you don't do anything, they do. All we do is guide them, but they physically and mentally go back to the place itself. They will find what it is. And that gentleman I'm talking about, his review on it was amazing. I wasn't expecting any of this from him, but what he got out of it and his family have got out of this now was realising he was feeling guilty about something for 50 years. It was nothing to do with him. It was never his fault in the first place, and all he's done is try to help other people with it, but he's been suffering all that time, and it's now that he's got the realisation himself, I never ever thought that that's what the problem was. He'd put it in other things because it's things now we look at, but you're right, we don't look all the way back at time. We say, well, where did this first happen? When could it have been? And it turned out it was actually younger than what he thought, but we didn't know that until he went through the program. And it was just the look in his face and the things that he wrote after I went, you can't believe. And that's how powerful this is, that people don't realise is it's not us. We are literally like, I call it like tourist guides. We just come into your life and say, right, there is something there, we just will help you to find it so you can release that and you don't have that pressure moment that eventually was.
Yes. And it's so interesting. In some of the conversations I've had with people and other therapists that are working with people, and they have people go back. One I spoke with the other day said this gentleman went back to when he was 6 months old, and he had, during the session, he had that moment of knowing that was what had happened. There had been an issue in the family and something 6 months old, but nobody thinks that that could be something that causes all of these issues in your life. And I've found that there's two different ways of them kind of showing up, where there's something that anchors in and you kind of experience it all your life, like anxiety or anger, like all of a sudden it's that little switch that gets flipped, because people will say, I was never like this, or I never had this issue, and now I don't know what's happened, but all of a sudden it's here. So it's usually one of those two things, but it relates. It goes right back to something at an early age that we would never think would be trauma.
And I think it's because, and if you look at it from a science point of view, which people then prefer, they can understand. If you look at it from psychology, children up to about 18 months, 2 years old are only learning about the world around about them. They don't really know what's happening. They're just learning things. And from 2 to about 7 is when they really learn right from wrong. But if you think about it, where do they get that from? They get it from their parents, their siblings, or close family, whoever's visiting them. They get that. And they say that up until about 7 years old, that all your limited beliefs are actually made. They're made in you, whatever you hear, whatever you see. So all we're doing over that time, over our life, is just exasperating those limited beliefs that we have, adding new experiences, adding on to them. So what happens is we forget about the original ones, because we remember remember the nearest or one further, but something you feel as you get older, you can relate to, but you don't always look back to you're like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old and try and relate to that. It's only when you can use something like hypnosis can take you back that far that you suddenly realise, oh, I know why that triggers me because this was said or that happened. How many times does a child get told to be silent? Well, they don't speak when you're spoken to, and they wonder why later on they're shy in life or why they can't speak in public or they feel difficult communicating with people, because for their whole life their parents are told them to be quiet. Then they do have to get in the world on their own. They want their parents, well, why can't you just mix? Why have you no friends? Because they don't know how to articulate that. They don't know how to communicate properly. And you mentioned earlier about the bad doing with the children. That's what that's for. It's mostly a program to help parents, but what it's also doing is parents are teaching the children life lessons, which means that they don't become these 40, 50-year-old people in the future who have got these issues because they've learned how to deal with it when they're younger. So you're giving them skills they can use throughout life to manage life, to maneuver through these different things.
Wow, that's amazing. All that you shared right there is so amazing, and I so appreciate that. Is there anything that you would like to share specifically about anyone that you've worked with, maybe a really great out or something like that? Obviously, yours is like this amazing outcome, and so I always have a hard time asking someone to share anything else because theirs is like, well, me, I'm an example.
One lady in particular, a lady who was in her 60s, who had a difficult time with her mother, and she came to me because her mum had passed a couple of years before, but she said it sounds stupid to people, but she wakes up and the mum's at the bottom of the bed. That's how she feels, as if she can physically see her. She's at the bottom of the bed, and it's always been because the two of them didn't get on all their life. She said, we've always hated each other, and there was a lot of problems when the family was young, and dad wasn't there, and things. So anyway, we talked this through, did some of these sessions, and it turned out that she was totally wrong. The mum wasn't there to hound her like she felt. When we looked back on it and she opened up, the memories that she had at the time were totally wrong. And mum was there protecting her all the time, even up to this point. And what it was, she was younger, the mum was very protective over her because she didn't want to get hurt by someone else that was in the family. There was somebody else who was an issue, it could have been. So she was protecting daughter from that. But she made it difficult for her because as they were growing up, the mum was always there, vetting boyfriends, husband, even later on caused her back up because she felt it was right for him. But it was because she didn't want her to end up with a life that the mum had had. So the mum was always there for her. And it was only then we realised when she got this, we found out that she had suddenly got problems with her eyes. She was difficultly seen. And when that happened, she was waiting her operations. That's when the mum started appearing, when she had a problem with her eyes. So the realisation became is the mum's not there hounding her because of this. That's the mum back again protecting her. That's an immediate mum now because she's been through such a tough time. So she was getting the mum to protect her with that. So that's why it was. Again, for her, the revelation on that was unbelievable. That for 60 years nearly, she's hated her mum, thinking she's tried everything to stop her being in life. It was only now when we seen these things happen. And again, when she looked at herself and realised the most difficult time in life now is she was losing her sight. And who's the one person that was there for her? Her mum. So once we went through that and she realised that, then she never saw the mum again. But she hadn't slept for over 5 years properly. She was on medication for that. Now she sleeps like a baby. That she just goes there every night because she's told the police she knows now but her mum is actually there and still looking after her, even after all these years. Even after everything she'd said about everything she thought the mum was like, then she turned out it's not. And you hear a story like that, where someone was so wrong, but always sort of thinking that they hated the person because of how bad they were, and realising they got it wrong for all those years. But to give them that peace and that thing now that she can actually even sleep at night, and she's not worried about this anymore, that was an amazing feeling. But the thing that people don't understand is it's not how good we feel we get it. It's the realisation when you see it in their eyes, when they realise what's happening and why it's happened, and that relief, sort of release moment, when they get the tears usually flood, when they go, that's the point for me. It's the most important because you know then that they're taking the first steps of moving forward.
Isn't it amazing that it's this perception that it's like a veil that's being lifted and all of a sudden you see this whole other version of what happened, and that's the truth. You've had this whole other perception of your life for this long, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, how did I even see it that way when it's opened up? But that's why they say you don't know until you know.
It's that. And the thing she said that got me the most was, when I'd first talked about her mum, she couldn't tell many happy memories, even when she was young. But see when this came down, this wall that she had came down, see when she contacted me later, she started to remember when they used to do things as a family, when they went places, or never on the family. She never remembered them before because she put such a block up. She's forgot all the good parts. All she got was the bad things, or she thought were bad. When that went, all these things came flooding back, which was quite emotional for her as well. But that shows the power that can be that we can do it to ourselves. We stop everyone else because we get so focused or fixated on one thing, and just letting that go and you realise everything else you've got.
Yeah, that's so true. That's exactly right. And those are the moments that I love. I absolutely love those moments. So, Tony, thank you so much for the conversation. I so appreciate it. I would love for you, of course, I'm going to have everything in the show notes, but I would love for you to share how people can connect with you and find you in the world.
Yeah, certainly. They can get me through my email if anyone wants to follow just for a chat around them. Email is Gordon at changingyourmindlimited.com, and the limited's LTD. So Tony Gordon at changingyourmindlimited.com. They can also get me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and my website's changingyourmindlimited.com. So anywhere at all, I'm always happy to speak to anyone.
I love that. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it.
All right, Change Gang, I hope you go off into the week and have a wonderful one, and I hope that you meet me right here, same time, next week. I hope today's episode was interesting and helpful to you in some way. If so, find someone to share it with. Maybe it will help them too. If you'd like to know more about anything discussed here today, you can find all the places to connect with me and the guest speakers in the show notes. Or go to lauraordile.com, LauraOrdile.com, and you can reach out to me there. Until next time, ask when you need help, be kind to yourself, and have a happy day.